I think nowadays people have such a backwards view of love and what it means. A lot of times I think when people talk about love, what they're describing is actually an emotion. How they feel about someone. And that's not really love to me, because that can change overnight. And for a lot of people, it changes all the time, back and forth. And if that's the best we got, like if that's the stability of love, then we don't have anything. Just think about married couples. Think about parents and children. You're gonna bump heads all the time. So if you bump heads, does that mean you don't love them anymore? No. You may feel a certain way about them. That doesn't mean you don't love them, because love isn't an emotion. To me, love is a commitment. Now, a lot of people will quote the Bible in 2 Corinthians where it says love is patient, love is kind, is not easily angered. The problem is that's not a definition. Paul is not defining love, he's describing love. And it kind of bugs me when people do that, because it's not a definition. Now, love, the best way I think I can describe love, and it fits with the biblical example of God and Jesus. The best way that I can describe love is continually having someone's best interest in mind. It's always having or consistently having that person's best interest in mind, even if it means it affecting your relationship, even if it means them not liking you. Now, why do I say that? Without that last part, it doesn't mean anything. Without that last part, you really just have a really shallow thing. It's, well, I'll act in this person's interest, but I don't want to rock the boat. You have a lot of people that do that and that think like that. That's not love. For example, think about your kids. If you're a good parent, you'll care more about your kids learning certain values than you care about them liking you. For example, if you want your kids to be disciplined, you want them to respect authority or respect adults, respect women, whatever kind of values you have, especially if you're a religious person, you're going to instill those in your kids whether your kids like it or not. I don't care if you get upset. You're going to respect your mom. You're going to clean your room. You're going to go to school and you're going to do well. Like, you don't care in that sense. You don't care about how they feel. They may say they hate you and all of that. You don't care if you're a good parent, because you are looking after their best interests. And their best interest is more important than their momentary emotions of you that change with the wind. Just think about love, like dating relationships or marriage. If love was just an emotion, when you have people saying things like, well, I'm going to treat the other person how they treat me. Like, if I feel like they're doing me dirty, if I feel like they're being rude or ignorant to me, I'm going to do the same thing to them. That's not love. That's like works-based so-called love. It's like you're trying to give them what they deserve. And love, especially if you look at the biblical model, you look at Israel, you look at Noah, you look at Adam and Eve with the grace they received. The biblical model of love is to give people something that they do not deserve, to give them to give them a devotion that they did not earn and that they cannot earn. Because if it can be earned, it can be bought. And if it can be bought, it's cheapened. All right? So, love, like if you look at how Jesus loved people, Jesus loved everyone. God loved everyone, but he disciplined them. He told them hard things. Look at the things he let happen to Israel, or he made happen to Israel. Harsh things. But he did that because his zeal for them was that he was going to deal with anything that affected the relationship between him and his people. Now, why is that significant? If there is a God, if God is the way that the Bible describes him, if he's this all-powerful, all-loving, all-knowing, all-wise, all-righteous person, then the most loving thing that God can do would be to confront anything in your life that would keep you from that wonderful being, which was himself. That was the most loving thing that he could do, was to attack those things, be hostile to those things, to be jealous for you when you give your attention to something else. That is the most loving thing that kind of God can do for you. But we look at it like, oh, this is uncomfortable. God allows pain or suffering, or in some cases, he causes pain or suffering. This isn't love. Love isn't about comfort. Love is about what is best for you. And Jesus told people, and he did what was best for them, whether they loved him or not. And this is something I learned when I was going through a very difficult time in my life, and I was wondering why God was allowing certain things to happen to me. And then I'm reading the Gospels, and I'm looking at certain things, and I'm like, yo, God really let some bad things happen, or some tough situations happen. For example, the prophet Samuel. The prophet Samuel was, I don't want to say taken from his mom, but his mom gave him up when he was like, when he was weaned off the breast. So was that 4, 3? Whenever Samuel was old enough to not breastfeed, his mom sent him to go serve in the temple. And she lived miles away, probably hundreds of miles away. Now, think about that. Does that mean that God didn't love Samuel? Because he let that 4-year-old, 5-year-old kid, whatever, he let him experience what it's like to not have your mom, to miss your mom, to question, why does it have to be this way? All of the emotions that come with it. Now, I'm not saying he did that to torture him. What I'm saying is that he allowed that to happen in his life. And as a prophet, seeing that he grew up to be a prophet, God actually ordained it. But God allowed him to go through that difficult thing. It turned out to be a blessing. He turned out to be a blessing to a whole nation. So, if you think about your own life, God, his purpose is not to give you the most comfortable life you can possibly have. That's the world's way of thinking. That's man's way of thinking. That's not what God does. God allows you to reap the benefits of your decisions, number one, but he also allows things to happen that will build you up, that'll help you to grow, that'll help you to understand him. And some of those things are going to be very hard and difficult. But when your mind is right, you're like, God, what's this about? God, what am I supposed to learn? What am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to change? What am I supposed to see? Then you can get through anything. But God loves you enough to care more about your well-being than your feelings. And when you have a friend who's out of pocket, when you have a brother or sister who's got something going on that's destroying them, you can't say you love them if you're unwilling to speak on it. And I'm not saying bash them upside the head and act like you're better than them, but if you know it, if it's moving in you like this is bad, and you don't have the guts to talk to them, then I don't know. You can even use that with evangelism. You can't say you love people if you're not willing to go through that awkwardness of sharing the gospel with them, because a lot of times it is awkward. Let's be real. Let's not act like it's just peaches and cream, especially if you're talking to strangers. I've shared my faith with strangers before. I haven't done it in a long time, but especially since I have like some social anxieties or whatever, it can be very difficult. It can be very nerve-wracking for me, but it can actually also be very exhilarating. But I can't say I love people. Nobody can say they love their community if they never serve their community, if they never do anything in their community. We know how that go. A guy tells a woman he loves her, but he never does anything to show it. It's just words. And when you love someone, if I have a girlfriend and I love my girlfriend, I'm not going to treat her bad because I feel like she's treating me bad. I love her. I want her to be treated well. I don't want her to feel pain. Now, I'm not saying we ain't gonna be humans, because as humans we're sinful, and as humans we do all kind of bad things, right? You can be a flawed human, and still love people. I'm not saying you can't, but if you love someone, like let's say you got your eye on a particular woman or a particular man, and you got feelings for him. If you love that person, can you be happy for them if they chose someone else, not you? Let's say you express your love for them and they said, sorry, I'm not interested, and they were respectful and all that, but then they hooked up with someone else and they're getting in a relationship and it's growing and they're happy. Can you be happy for that person? Because love is, again, my definition, love is always having someone's best interest in mind, regardless of the feelings that come with it. So you can be sad, you can be dejected, you can be envious. I mean, come on, you're human. You can be envious, but can you be happy for them? Can you say, this sucks, but they are really happy. I'm glad they have that joy. Can you say that? Can you deal with difficult conversations with your friends? Can you deal with difficult conversations with your family? And I'm not talking about necessarily just you having them, but them having them with you. Because if you love someone, you should also respect their opinion. You should also listen to them. If you love somebody, you're going to listen to them. And when they express concerns and that sort of thing, you're going to, I'm not saying you're going to just bend over backwards and do whatever people say, but you ought to at least take it to heart and consider what they're saying. The world has got it all wrong. And I see people posting like on Facebook, like, in relationships, I only do what the other person does. I don't rise above that. What kind of relationship is that? So what if y'all both are like that? What if both people are thinking like that? Then your relationship is just going to stay trash forever. It's just going to be selfish you, selfish them forever. That's not a relationship. That's not the biblical model. The biblical model is God giving freely. The people who didn't deserve it and the people he knew were going to mess up. And that includes you, because you're one of them. I'm one of them. That's love. We put a price on our love. And by doing so, it no longer, it basically proves that it's not love. But we ought not be like that. Let's look at the biblical model of giving, of loving, of caring. Jesus said, love everybody. Because God loves everybody. Give to everybody. Jesus said, give to everybody who asks. Love your enemies. Forgive your enemies. Forgive your brother completely. 70 times 7 or 77 times 7, like something ridiculous. Continually show grace and mercy, because that's how God is. When you can do that, then you can say you love. Or if you're working in your heart to be that kind of person, that's when you can say you love someone. Just because somebody give you a little flutter in your stomach, just because it's somebody that's fun to hang out with, that don't mean that you love them. That don't mean that they love you. That means that y'all have fun together. There are plenty of people I've had fun with. I didn't necessarily love them. And there are people that I don't have fun with, and I love them. It's not a feeling. If you base your love on a feeling, you are going to have a roller coaster, a nightmarish roller coaster of emotional disappointment, because you're riding this roller coaster and you're basing it off of feelings. And truth be told, sometimes, and if you're a parent, you know this, and you had parents, so you're going to know this. The person that's most in your corner can seem like the person that's most against you, because they're going after something that is inside of you that needs to come out, that needs to be dealt with. But you don't know that. Think about it. The doctor cuts you open and pulls stuff out. Sometimes they pull out, that sounds kind of violent. They sometimes the doctor goes in and removes remove body parts. Can you imagine if they do damage to your body to fix your body? And sometimes the people that love you will do damage to your ego, damage to your emotions. They can do damage to your situation if you're taking advantage of them and they set some boundaries. And they tell you, look, you're going to honor these boundaries. But don't base your view of love on feelings and emotion. That's not the biblical standard, and that's no way anything. I don't even see how you can find happiness in that, because your emotions change constantly. All right? Love, true love, is continually having the person's best interest in mind in everything.